Oh god, it's the hoof. They cut off. Okay.
Stay there. There you go.
Fucker, no.
Hello, my name is Jasmine. I'm an illustrator and welcome to my channel. For today's vlog, I will be returning to work on my medieval comic Girl Night. I went on vacation for 2 weeks in November. I didn't really get back to this, and now we're in December. I really need to get back to working on my project. Since it's been a while, I figured I would have you come along on this process, getting back in business here. If you're new here, welcome. I have been documenting the entire process of writing and now drawing an extensive medieval comic, and I'm now just starting chapter 3. I have a whole playlist under Girl Night featuring all of the vlogs I've made covering the process of writing and thumbnailing and drawing chapter 1 and 2. There's also bonus vlogs on my Patreon, so if you are interested in getting more behind the scenes stuff, as well as seeing the actual pages, including their sketches and like all those extra goodies, definitely consider becoming a patron for only $1 a month. You'll get full access. That's where I primarily hang out at. But today, we're gonna get back into this. I'm a little hesitant because like, it's been a month. I have not touched, read, seen any of this comic in a whole month. Maybe I needed the break. I was feeling a little bit of burnout, or maybe I was being wrecked by self-doubt. Sometimes I question whether this project is really worth working on because I feel like what I'm doing is literally insane sometimes. But how I get through all that, I just try to ignore it. What else would I be doing? This is literally my passion. This is what I want to be doing while I'm sleeping, eating, going out. I want to be right here, usually. So I got nothing else to do. I really hope that I'm able to show the world that this story really is interesting and worth your attention. So now that you're all caught up on the fact that I need to get back onto chapter 3, I first need to look at my progress. Like, where did I leave off on chapter 3? This is my notebook that I contain all of the comic pages. It's primarily my place where I dump all the thumbnails and I track my progress. So for example, these are my total pages. These are literally all of the pages that I've drawn and thumbnailed, and they're color-coded by the chapter. Because I'm currently working on chapter 3, it's what is in blue. Oh, I should also mention that if you're interested in reading the comic, chapter 1 and 2 are already available to read both on Webtoon and on Instagram. If you haven't read it and you're interested, check them out. If you're interested in reading chapter 3, as I'm drawing the pages, I post them on Patreon as soon as they're drawn. There is no waiting if you have access to Patreon. In this notebook, I also have the covers for each chapter because each chapter has 2 covers, the outside and the inside covers. And I keep all of my thumbnails for that, for like brainstorming and stuff. So I need to look at chapter 3, which is where I apparently have this bunny bookmark. That's right, so I'm working on page 8 out of 30 something pages. So for every chapter, I've been doing trackers. This is my big tracker for chapter 3. What's highlighted is what's already drawn, and what's marked in red is what I've already edited. So technically what's in red, those pages are complete. They're ready to go. I've already shared them on Patreon. It looks like there's only 1 page left to edit, and then I have the entire chapter still left to draw. So yeah, that's a lot of stuff that I still need to do. There's 2 reasons why I do this setup for every chapter. One, it's to get a good bird's eye view of my progress, so that way I can see ahead and think, maybe I'll finish next month, or this looks like it might take 2 months instead, so I can better more realistically plan my months ahead, my workload. And the second reason is purely to keep myself motivated. So yeah, this looks really daunting right now, and it just makes me feel slightly dead inside, seeing just how much needs to be drawn. But by the time I'm like halfway done with drawing this chapter, I'll feel amazing knowing that there's like, wow, I've already drawn 18 pages. It keeps my pace going, which when you're making comics, you're running a marathon, not a race. So the key to making comics is just finding ways to stay motivated. Under my desk, because it's glass, it's nice that I can look through it, but this is where I keep my script. For every chapter, I print it out and then I do a read-through while I'm also thumbnailing. And in doing the read-through, I'm still revising the script, and I'll probably still be tweaking the wordings of things or the order of the dialogue simply for purposes of the comic panels. I just wanted to show my process. Just because I print something, there's still room for changes all the way until it's edited on the computer. Like this page, I really changed the script. Sometimes I draw stuff when I'm figuring out how to do the paneling. I'm working on page 8, so I think that was right here, which is at the end of a scene. So I'm gonna leave that under the table again. And then page 8 is this, which is really messy, but it makes sense to me. I color code the panels so that when I revise it, I know which panel I've redrawn. And wow, I drew these thumbnails in August. Oh my lord. I love seeing how other comic artists thumbnail their process because it really is a window into their brain. For me, I'm a very tactile person. I change my mind a lot, so to me, doing it in paper makes more sense. Yeah. Now to start my pages, I actually already, this is my sketch paper. So once I sketch out all the basic shapes, I will transfer it to the actual comic paper. So the first step of drawing these pages is to just get the panels down and sketch out the main shapes so that by the time I'm in the comic page, I point over there because that's where the comic paper is. By the time I get to the final comic paper, I don't want to be sketching and ruining the paper with all these pencil marks. I want to already figure out what the basic shapes and the composition is going to look like past the thumbnails. I hope that makes sense. I am remembering kind of why I stopped here before going on vacation, and that's because this panel is the end of a scene. So we're starting a whole new scene right here with a rooster calling in the morning. These panels are going to feature a blacksmith in the castle. So I probably stopped because I knew that I needed to figure out what the blacksmith's shop needs to look like. This is a medieval comic, so it's gonna require some research as to what were the items in the set. It's basically set design. Like, I have to design the set, but because it's historical, I want to make sure that what I'm drawing is somewhat historically accurate. I just don't want to throw a bunch of stereotypes in there. I have this little notebook that I bought at the Japanese 99-cent store. I leave it here because it's pretty much my scrap paper to figure out some of the angles and stuff really quickly without having to have too much scrap paper everywhere. Like, I prefer it to be contained in one little booklet since it's not really anything important. Like, this is obviously not finished work, so I like not having all kinds of loose paper. So I'm going to take my time to research references of medieval blacksmith shops and see if I can come out with a layout of this particular shop in the castle. So I'm going to do some research and I will get back to you in a second. It's really important to use proper sources when you're looking at reference images and to just know what time period you're looking at. The comic takes place in the year 1414, and this is probably 100 years before that. I look at images like this loosely because it's still important to see the progression of how things developed, like the shape of those hammers, the shape of the anvil. This thing, I forgot the name of this thing, but it basically blows the air into the fire. God, I don't know my words. So the purpose of this thing in a blacksmith shop is to heat up the coals very, very hot, because by itself a fire is only going to burn at a certain temperature, but when you add oxygen really fast into this fire, it heats up super high. And so it's kind of cool to see these contraptions that look pretty modern still date back hundreds and hundreds of years ago. Apart from nerding out, I'm just saying, don't be afraid to look at reference images and just look at them really closely and see what the hell is going on here. The little pincers, and what are they wearing? Is he wearing an apron? Yeah, he's definitely wearing an apron. So if this was 100 years before when the comic takes place, then I feel comfortable incorporating some of these things. But it's still very important to look at more contemporary sources. But I mean, we're working with the internet here. There's really only so much I can find, but I can just keep trying. And that's why I love Pinterest too, because if I like this image, it will show me similar images. Here's another one with that contraption. I'm trying to figure out where in the heater, like do they go from the side or from the back? Do they go through a hole, or can you just like shove it on the side? It's those little details I need to find out because I'm gonna be drawing them, so it's important to figure that out. The other thing I was trying to find is the shape of the anvil. So we all know that anvils have like this weird shape, but I am not sure if we've always had anvils of that shape. So it's important to just check what these images are also showing. And from everything that I've seen, some of them were rectangular squares of metal and others had like sort of a shape of a traditional anvil, but not quite. And they're all sitting on tree trunks, so I feel pretty confident of drawing the anvil on top of a tree trunk. Little things like that. So that's part of what I'm trying to figure out here. Like here's that little blower thing. And this one's pretty cool. So this is the other anvil I was talking about where it's rectangular, but it starts having the little spiky thing. Oh, what happened there? Oh god, it's the hoof. They cut off. Okay, that's weird. Moving on. The last thing I wanted to see was that blower thing, the handle. What did it look like? Some of these drawings, they're not super detailed, and this one would be great if he wasn't freaking blocking the handle. So I just need to keep looking and figure out what that contraption must have looked like, which they varied. It's not like I find one and it's going to represent all of them. No, I've seen a bunch of different kinds of blowers here, but it would be nice to find one that made sense in these illustrations. So I'm gonna stick to this then. This is the bird's eye layout of the shop, and then this is what it would look like outside. I didn't quite get the perspective right here, but that doesn't matter. It's pretty much just blocking out all the different elements so that when it comes to drawing the comic, the positioning of things makes sense. So my bird really wanted to play with his peanut toy, so bear with me if you hear that in the background. So the rest of the panels on this page were basically trying to figure out the placement of the character Giddy in his blacksmith shop. That panel after the rooster, the whole point of that panel is to connect the rooster with the blacksmith shop. So the rooster is going to be all the way in the background where basically the vanishing point. So it's all like connecting the camera around the space of the castle. Those two little panels are close-ups of what Giddy is actually working on, which is a horseshoe. I messed up the first frame, so they're basically just going to be repeated with only like slight differences. So I scrapped that first square and pretty much focused on the second panel. Now the last panel is going to be more difficult because it's going to have a full background and two characters. So it's going to be Giddy and his wife Jeanne. This part was tricky because, again, I wanted to keep focusing on drawing proper perspective. I'm still working on getting better at perspective, so my panels might still come out pretty wonky. But the point that I'm trying to make is that I want to make the effort. I want to put in the time to be thoughtful about where I'm angling things. Instead of just going for the basic angles, am I using my resources properly? Am I really pushing myself to get the right panels for the story that I'm trying to tell. The tricky part in this one was the background. So if the vanishing point is slightly higher, then we want to show more ground. But then the buildings in the back, they just looked weird and distorted. So it took me a while to figure this one out, and because of all the blue pencil, I ended up having to use red pencil to go on top of it so that like I could clearly see what I end up deciding on. But yeah, I really had trouble with that building on the right and how it vanishes into the distance. I'm not sure if I quite nailed it, but for a start, this will be good. I think once I look at this later, my eye will be a lot fresher and be able to detect like any distortions in there. So this page is done. This last panel came out really messy, but I'm actually trying to go in that direction in the sketching phase because lately my panels have been coming out super stiff. So my new approach now is that during the sketching phase, try to be as loose as possible and really try to hone in the main composition. As you can see, I did move around the vanishing point slightly, trying to figure out the buildings made sense, and also if like her scale made sense with him. Overall, I think I'm pretty happy with how this came out. I've got page 9 and 10 paneled out, so I still need to sketch those out. I think that's what's going to be my goal for next week, is to tackle these 3 pages. What's key in this whole comic making process is to batch your work. So I think for here, this batch is going to be 3 pages. It's almost 8 o'clock and my husband is cooking dinner, so I'm gonna go hang out with him. My goal tonight was to sketch that whole page, so that's done. I think I can call it a night since it's Friday. I'll see you tomorrow. Hi, it's Saturday, the next day. I just got back from work. I have about a half-hour window to work on this before we have to leave and go camping with my in-laws. It's just for a night. It's not really a big deal, but it's gonna be fun. I'm gonna take advantage of that. Not a long time, but we're still gonna squeeze it in. Okay, my time is up. This one, I was trying to figure out the scale of the figures along with the perspective. I'm really trying to be more, I feel like the figures are too low, so instead of just redrawing them over with red, I put a black ink pen marking. So when I transfer this to the comic page, I'll know that I just need to trace this, but up here. I also made a note, just in case I forget.
At the Easter event, Carmen, I'm doing a casino night. So we're gonna have Black Easter casino.
I want to stay with I heard that.
With actual dealers and put up with them now.
Photo?
No. Go home, Jonathan.
Yeah, exactly.
I signed the contract.
That's why I'm not complaining.
You look good holding it.
Warm and toasty.
Carmen, stand right here. Right there, Carmen. Stay there. There you go.
Fucker, no wonder I farted on
We're
you.
here for you.
It's like magical. Wow.
They had a fireplace.
Oh, look, he's trying to get her to go.
They had a fire. They had a fire shop.
And then looking a bit pissed because like they're not going to really make any money on it.
They're huts also.
Huh?
They're huts. Huts is a good brand. So everybody's going to Anja?
Randy?
What do you mean up?
People out.
Everybody, is everybody?
Look at that. Incredible. Really? You guys look great. Yummy.
Season's greetings.
Yeah. Hi, Clyde. I like how you place the pickle. Hi, we're back home. Before we hang out together, I'd like to work on this for a few hours because I've been thinking about what would be the next thing to make me feel like I'm back on track. I've started sketching the next pages. I've been editing already drawn pages. I do feel like I should start working on the chapter cover. If you recall earlier in my notebook that I have the thumbnails of a bunch of chapter illustration ideas that I have. Every chapter I make 2 illustrations. I do the front cover like this, and then I do the inside illustration like this. Here are what I've done for chapter 1 and 2. I think all that's missing for me to feel like I'm back on track is to at least start working on chapter 3's 2 illustrations. Back to my handy dandy notebook of the project. So this one's chapter 1. This is the thumbnail for 2, and this is what I have had drawn for 3. So I still need to figure out a bunch of the elements. And I think that's what I'll do today, is refine that thumbnail and get those elements down. Because what I also do in making those illustrations is I vlog them. So I have the 2 vlog series for chapter 1 and 2's illustrations here. You're welcome to check them out. In the description I'll add the links. So I don't want to get too much into detail in making the illustration today, but I do want to refine the thumbnail so that eventually when I return back to the illustration I can just jump right in. I don't have to be doing the research and figuring out what it's supposed to look like. I'm going to transfer the information to my sketchy sketchbook. The inside is going to be a character posing for something that's supposed to be related to the chapter, and then these squares are going to be the 5 sword position techniques that Sir Boniface is going to go over in the comic. And then the background is going to be red with flowers and plants. I need to decide what those plants or flowers are going to be and finish my research on the exact positioning of the swords. I just need to look up to remember exactly what they were. I'm thinking the middle part is going to be Henry while training, so he's going to be in his training outfit, because honestly this whole chapter is going to be about Alice's training. It really depends on what part of that chapter I want to pull from. And for the sword positions, I'm going to refer back to my favorite sword practicing manual from the early 1400s. I got this at the Getty Museum, and it's been very useful to get references for the training.
She was good. She was definitely meowing when we could hear her coming up behind there.
So I actually moved this party to my desk because most of the work is going to be research and doodling, so I really don't need to be sitting uncomfortably on the drawing desk. With that, oh my god, I went into such a tangent. Like, I was ready to do a quick search of Fiore's 12 sword stances and just like picking 5 for the cover, and then I got into a little bit of self-doubt of like, wait, should I be picking Fiore? And when I say Fiore, I mean this guy, because this is the Italian way of sword techniques. I haven't really done a lot of research on the German one, and I know that the German technique is more popular. It's a much more extensive history, so I just want to make sure that I'm picking the right things. Now, part of the troubles with research is that you can get into rabbit holes, so it's really important that you stay on track and you remember what it is that you're researching and like what exactly do you need to know right now. Like, so I did spend about 45 minutes looking at videos comparing the Italian fencing techniques with the German ones, and we're talking medieval here. And I did find a lot of information for Fiore, so I'm not going to totally like push him aside, even though the German style is much more popular. I just wanted to make sure that if I'm gonna pick the 5 stances on my chapter cover, that they're, I don't want to say accurate, that they're just like, that they're historically like relevant within that time period. I will say I think I did go a little bit into the rabbit hole and had way too much fun just learning about wrestling and different sword techniques that, yeah, it probably got a little too distracted, but we're back on track. I got tons of information and notes on it, and at the end of the day, I just need to copy what the stances are. I just wanted to know the background a little bit and the context before I adopt those stances for the cover. That's just my personal preference, so let me just show you really quickly. These are my notes today. This section, which I ended up writing so much more than for the German side because I started learning a little bit about the German stuff, but I decided to just stick with the Italian system based on Fiore dei Liberi. It got pretty complicated focusing on footwork, wrestling, the different turns that are part of the footwork. So none of this is gonna go into the actual cover. So after I got to this point, I was like, all right, clearly there's a lot more room still to learn about these sword techniques. I just need to focus. So after that, I looked up Fiore's actual sword stances, and it's just these, you guys. It's just these 12 positions. So what I need to do is pick 5 of these stances and I will draw them onto the chapter cover. That's it. So let's just do that and see if we can just be done with this. Okay, so I'm done with figuring out what everything looks like. I still... No. What are you doing? Let that... That's not for you. Ooh! It's not for you. No. Okay, so really quickly, I finished figuring out the stances, what the background's going to look like, the title, and really I just need to finesse the details of the middle. I think I'm going to have Rodrigo the Spanish Knight entering the castle with his all knightly livery. This is the initial idea. I think I still need to tweak the angle and if that's really what I want the composition to look like. I'm gonna leave that here and make a few more the next time I tackle this, probably for the vlog where I'll actually be working on this illustration, so I'll leave that for that future. As for the inside, really quickly, I was thinking of these white vines mixed with all kinds of little details in between. I've already made a folder, so when I actually do need to work on this illustration, I'm pretty much set to go. Almost. Still need to work on that middle illustration, but whatever. I think this is where I'll pretty much end this vlog. I feel like I'm back on track, you guys. The train is back on its tracks. It's going full throttle, and I'm really excited to see how much I can get done next week. I just wanted to document how I actually decided to tackle this because I've been dragging my feet and I'm finally in it. If you're new to my channel, make sure to subscribe if you're interested in continuing to watch this journey. If you'd like to see all the pages and more behind the scenes stuff, definitely consider becoming a patron. It's only $1 a month. That's where I live mostly, and then I make these vlogs. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!